often describe the college as my Lake Washington family, and I'm not alone in feeling that way. Prior to working virtually in the pandemic, I knew nearly everyone who worked or taught at Lake Washington. And as a small two-year college, I often knew a thing or two about what was going on in their lives and their students' lives as well. It's that family and connection to students and community that has made my 20 years at Lake Washington so meaningful and fulfilling. In 2016, our community was struggling. Over the course of less than 2 years, 9 current or former students died by suicide. The impact on students, faculty, and staff was both unprecedented and devastating. We've worked hard to cultivate a community of belonging on campus, and when someone is violently pulled out of that community, it hurts. There were days when the sadness and frustration were overwhelming. Why was this happening? What could we do to stop it? At times, these questions led to a feeling of helplessness. Like the vast majority of two-year colleges, we didn't have the resources for a counseling center with a staff of therapists. In fact, our meager counseling resources had just been cut. None of the deaths occurred on campus, so what realistically could we even do? Well, true to college culture, inaction was not an option. A small group of colleagues and I attended a training to learn more about suicide prevention. We realized that we couldn't just tackle this problem within student services or public safety alone. We needed a campus-wide approach. So I sent out an all-college email inviting volunteers to join a task force on suicide prevention. In no time, we assembled a cross-campus group of smart, passionate, and motivated faculty and staff. It included many folks I knew I could count on, like leaders from Veterans Affairs, student life, psychology faculty, campus public safety, as well as some surprises like our research department, instruction administration, the library, and one dedicated student, a close friend of one of the students who had died by suicide. Over the course of the next 5 years, we got to work. With the help of experts at the JED Foundation, we surveyed students to understand the mental health concerns and needs of the community. We were able to secure temporary grant funding for a part-time mental health counselor who provided short-term counseling on campus. We fundamentally changed how we talked about suicide and mental health on campus, paying special attention to the needs of different cohorts of students within our community. For example, our Veterans Services and Marketing team collaborated on dedicated messaging and resources to resonate with veteran students. We trained faculty and staff in mental health first aid to be able to provide support in the moment with students experiencing a mental health crisis. And we also took a hard look at our care team processes and put in hours working with faculty toward a common understanding of how to refer a student in need of support. And we made sure there were several channels for sharing a concern, whether through a hallway conversation, an email, a starfish early alert, and laid out exactly how the care team follows up so faculty know they're not shouting into a void. What was so powerful about this task force was that the work was not just contained to this group of cross-campus leaders. They also involved their teams in this work. Not only did this help to further shift our culture, but it also surfaced life-saving ideas that we otherwise wouldn't have thought of or been able to implement with the task force's limited capacity. I want to share one powerful example of this. Our director of campus public safety, who was part of the task force, involved his team in a comprehensive environmental scan of campus to reduce the means by which a person could harm themselves on site. This work struck a chord with one of the public safety technicians on his team, who was empowered to identify high-priority changes. One of his ideas was to place signs and information stations in strategic, isolated places around the campus to convey to anyone who needed it that they are not alone, help is available, and how they can access support immediately. He worked with the marketing team to design and order signs. But when his order came in, there was a problem. What were supposed to be small 8-inch by 10-inch signs were actually 3 feet by 5 feet. They were huge. The technician was embarrassed, and he felt like he had wasted college resources. We got together, and our director of student programs said, "Well, why can't we use the signs?" And she was right. There's no best practice size for suicide prevention signs, and some of the highest priority areas of concern were remote corners of parking lots. So that's where they went. Then we ordered new small ones to fulfill his original goal for inside the buildings. Several months later, I got a call from campus public safety. They had just received an urgent call from a student. She was sitting in a parking lot on campus, making a plan to end her life. On campus, that day. In that isolated corner of the parking lot, she saw a sign that said her campus community cared and gave her a number to call if she needed help. She dialed that number, reaching campus public safety, who came out to meet her and brought her to me and our director of student development. We were able to work with the student to de-escalate the situation and have local police transport her voluntarily to emergency mental health care. She was later able to successfully return to her studies. That sign, that so-called mistake, was able to transform the student's life by giving her a way to reach out for the help she needed. Today, I know of countless stories of students, faculty, and staff who have been empowered to seek help for themselves or others, in part because of the culture we've worked to cultivate over the past 5 years. This work has shown me how essential cross-campus collaboration and creativity is to respond to complex problems with limited resources. And it's taught me that life-saving ideas can come from everywhere, even from our mistakes.